everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sports and about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, well, if this isn't rock bottom, and I don't know if we can say that it's rock bottom because we don't know what's to come yet, but I can tell you this, I think that this is probably the low point so far of the Jets season. Yeah, they can probably go lower. I would think that they can go lower. But to me, you take a look at this, and to be clear, I want to make it known, I didn't see the first two periods of this game, but boy, oh boy, the texts that I was getting from a lot of you and a lot of people across the industry, if I'm being honest about the way the Jets were playing in the first period, were pretty dour. Going back and having a look at a lot of the goals that were scored, it's clear this Jets team that used to be Fort Knox in front of its own net looked like they were giving away free tickets to the front row. The way that they were giving up the goals here tonight and the goals on the inside. This is a far cry from the Winnipeg Jets team that we saw not that long ago. And I'll say this, not long ago, it looked with the Winnipeg Jets like, if they got one or two goals, the other team, may as well wave the white flag because you couldn't score on this team. Now it's looking the opposite way. It's looking like if a team scores on the Winnipeg Jets, wave the white flag, it's done for them. Their inability to score is reaching absolutely epic proportions. But I will say this, and I'll jump right off the bat into this situation. I should let everyone know here, I'm going to have to cut out at some point. My flight is starting to board right now, so I'm going to try and get just my quick little intro in here before I've got to go. Kevin O is going to come in and captain this ship or this flight after I jump out the cockpit window with the well, let's hope that I've got the parachute on my back here. But this is a point at which you have to be concerned with how the Winnipeg Jets are playing. They resemble nothing compared to the hard-working, hard-to-play against team that we've seen in the past. To me, the most concerning thing for me is now the carelessness with which we're seeing the Jets handle the puck. I take a look and hand out the pristine roofing wake-up call to Kyle Connor on the breakaway that he has. I mean, you're talking about one of the best scorers in the league who's got a clear-cut path to the net. He doesn't need to be caught by the player behind him. He allows it to happen because he's trying to draw him in and button hook and make a pass across to the trailing player. Where's the killer instinct that you are typically looking for? So for me, that's the pristine roofing wake-up call, and you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake-up call at 1-204-981-6289 for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs, or you can call Pristine Roofing themselves at 1-204-237-7663. But that to me is just a sign of the confidence level that this team has right now, that one of the best scorers in the NHL would forgo a breakaway in an effort to pass the puck off in a play that even if he would have made that pass and it wouldn't have been broken up, you still have a goaltender who's entirely prepared for that pass to be coming in. It's not like you're catching anyone off guard. This is just a Jets team right now that is not feeling it, although maybe they were starting to feel it when Nikolai Ehlers gets promoted to the first line, which, hey, you may have heard us talking about that on this very podcast right here. The idea of getting Nikolai Ehlers back onto the first line sure looked like it paid off, as I don't know if they scored immediately once he was on the line. It didn't take too long, though, and after that, a very direct Nick Ehlers getting a lot of pucks to the net. I thought that paid off, and if you're looking to pay off high-interest credit card or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. So, I mean, maybe there's a little bit of reason to believe after that. Again, the Jets don't pull the goalie. Everyone heard my rant here last time. I don't know, maybe this is a situation where the Jets are thinking at this stage, we're trying to find something that works with our lines at 5-on-5, so let's just practice that. We're not ready to practice with the extra man and take that situation into account. To me, it's just a sign of a team that not long ago was looking like the most structured, most had it together team in the NHL, and now kind of look like they're in shambles. No confidence. Their defense isn't anywhere where it should be. Teams seem to be breaking their forecheck rather easily compared to what we've seen in the past. I can't quite get to it yet, whether, we had this debate quite a bit between Ken and myself. I'm not one of these guys who buys, oh, you're the first place team in the league and every single team that comes running in now gives you their absolute best. I don't buy that. I still don't buy it, but I will say this. If you are one of the absolute best teams in the league, I think what starts happening is coaches take a look at your system and think, okay, how do we break this? I think you got to start asking the question if maybe the Winnipeg Jets forecheck has been broken, because what we're seeing, I talked about Ken with this and I didn't make it into the podcast last time, but the last game they played against the Pittsburgh Penguins, their forwards were simply flying the zone, lobbing pucks into center ice. And as the Jets had to give up the blue line to follow those players, but they dove at those players to try and snuff the play, those wingers were just back passing the puck to the center who was moving up the zone and catching the defense flat-footed. That to me was a clear indication that that the Pittsburgh Penguins had a system that was working to break that forecheck of the Winnipeg Jets. Tonight, the forecheck was non-existent, it seemed, for a good chunk of that game. Is it because the Flyers have broken it as well, or is it because the Jets simply aren't creating the effort required to pull off their system? I'll tell you this. I don't see the effort level that we got used to with the Winnipeg Jets. It's been absent, and I do think Rick Bowness's system is a system that is an all-or-nothing system. Unless everybody is in, everyone is playing at the top of their game, it is not a system that's going to work. It does not look to be working right now. The Jets' effort level does not seem to be there. Not a lot to take away from this game to feel faith going forward. A lot of you have been talking about singing, ringing the alarm bells and saying the same thing that happened is about to happen this year. I'm not there yet. I don't think that that's the case here, but boy, oh boy, those of you who've been saying that for a while now, the evidence is piling up for your argument. That's my take on this whole thing. But that's all of the take I can give you. Probably all the take you want to handle from a guy who's got half an eye on the gate that he's about to fly on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a double. Kevin O deserves his own music. We don't have it, but we're going to bring him and Ken Wiebe in here with Ken Wiebe's music, which we all know is the best in the business. So here comes Kenny and Kevin O, everybody. Kevin O, you know the drill here. I'm going to leave this in your very capable hands down the stretch here as I cut out. I just say you got to watch out for one thing. Ken may start talking about trying to break up the third line. It's a historically bad take that he just turns to all the time. Just watch for that. Other than that, I know you got this covered, my man. So great job. Thanks for coming in and joining us, Kevin. Great to see you, Kenny. Bye all to everyone.
Travel smoothly, buddy.
It's great to see you all. Enjoy the show, everybody.
Have a safe flight, and thanks, gentlemen. Jets can't score. Jets can't win. Bell Media is shuttering radio stations and laying off favorite local TV personalities on the news. And you bring this guy in, Kenny? This is your night? This is what we get? This is PTSD for everyone who follows sports in Winnipeg, but I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to help you guys out. I work better with Renny because then it's Kevy and Renny and we just roll into it. Kenny and Kevy will have to do tonight. And of course, you bring on your friends when things are going bad, right? This is what we do. Bring in the family and let's try to figure things out, because I know there's nobody that is happy with what's going on and what they saw tonight. And I was doing the exact same thing as a lot of you were tonight, watching your televisions or streaming on your phones and your laptops, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And welcome, KO. Great to be with you. Great to see you twice in the same week. Great little dinner last night. So certainly lots of angst. We know that is the case here. Pretty tough start for the Winnipeg Jets.
Let's talk about the angst first and foremost.
Sure, yeah.
Because you know where the angst is coming from. It's coming from before the All-Star break and what we've seen after, right? And so I made excuses for them on the pre and post game show for how long, right? 5 years going back a ways. And there's a difference between excuses and there's a difference between reasons, right? And there are reasons for what happened before the break. Can we separate these two things between the All-Star break? Because right now it's an avalanche and it's all pouring downhill and it's the worst that it's ever been and it's not going to get better. We know what was going on before the All-Star break. You know what those last couple games are like heading into the break. The first game coming out of the break in Pittsburgh is always a crapshoot for both teams. Either way, there was a couple of bad bounces in that one. No, the Jets weren't good. I'm not trying to sell you that they were good in Pittsburgh. They weren't. They lost that game, deserved to, without a doubt. Can't score all the things. But that's kind of, where we roll into today. And today we kind of expected to see them. They didn't have to be as good as they were in the month of December, but we expected to see, signs of that. And certainly in the first period, I mean, there's just no way you can't play like that, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the biggest thing. Yeah, sure. Game one out of the break. Yeah, it's bad first period for everybody. Sure. But when a team openly talks about a team being among the league leaders in rush chances and then gives up a goal on a rush chance, essentially 3.5 minutes into the hockey game, that's pretty much not acceptable. And
that goal shouldn't happen, Kenny, because
it can't happen.
Dylan Sandberg's moved up in the lineup, right? He makes the pinch. Is it the best pinch that he's ever made? Wisest decision? No. But it wasn't.
He had coverage. He had coverage.
Pinch. Number 13 is right back there, and he's standing right next to the guy who scores the goal, and he just completely leaves him alone. And I know I watched the highlights, and it was, well, what was LB thinking? Because he's tucked in, he's strictly playing the shooter because he knew that Gabe Vilardi was right there, right? So Vilardi had a tough night, right? You saw him get bounced down to the fourth line. He's a -3 on the score sheet at the end of the night, and that lack of concentration was something that we didn't see earlier. But when you're a team that is, I'm not going to say they're in free fall, but they're definitely struggling for a lot of things to go right. All that play that led up to that first goal that was pivotal, and they talked about it on the broadcast, that the first goal for both of these teams in a hockey game really changes the way that they play, really changes their confidence, really changes the way things are going and the way things have been going for Winnipeg. That first goal was going to be pivotal. That's a play that is between the ears, right? It's not physical, it's not a lucky bounce, it's not a bad break. It's a bad play is what it is.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I had a bunch of texts come in about the pinch also, and for me, the pinch is fine because Gabriel Vilardi is the F3
Correct.
Is exactly where he needs to be.
And through the month of December, every time you made that pinch, right? They made lots of pinches that looked exactly like the one Dylan Sandberg did, where he didn't get the puck or the man, and they came back on a rush chance. And what happened? Well, it was negated because that forward going back that ends up scoring the goal in Forster is completely tied up. He's in the cross-face chicken wing in front of Connor Hellebuck or LB, and he doesn't get a shot off.
Right, and that's the issue. And the pinch is fine. The back check is actually fine. Vilardi is hustling all the way into
the right place.
He's exactly in the right place. But here's the problem: he didn't set up didn't take away the pass, nor did he lift the. You got to have a stick
positioning. You have to be on the guy. That's it.
There's Gabriel Vilardi is a very smart defensive player. He just had a brain cramp. There's no other way to explain it because he was standing in the right spot, but then he kind of he wasn't even coasting. He just sort of not even quit on the play. It was like he forgot that he had to either knock away the pass or everybody gets taught at every level. Take away the guy's stick. There's no play to be made there. Yeah. So I mean that was obviously, and as you mentioned, I mean that was a tough goal for Vilardi. He found himself for a while on the fourth line. Alex Iafallo gets the bump up. We're going to talk plenty about lines and Nikolai Ehlers. I mean, Sean touched on it with the Cambrian, the play that paid off. And, I'd like to see Nikolai Ehlers start Saturday's game on that line. I mean, we talked about it a lot the other day, and you and I can talk about it a little more too. And I also like the fact that Vilardi ended the game with Sean Monahan and Cole Perfetti, because I think that line has three very cerebral players, and not that Nikolai Ehlers is not cerebral. He absolutely is. But I think that Vilardi, his ability to win board battles, get his shot away, get to the front of the net, all of those things I think will mesh a little bit more He's more of a straight line player where we know Ehlers is an east-west player. So, I mean, just
and he's going to dig pucks off the wall in
exactly
theory, right? And Velarde's going to be able. We've seen him with the good hands along the wall, right? Be able to dig pucks out and flip him in front. And we've seen Sean Monahan go to that spot and have some success. I mean, he got one to the doorstep tonight. Obviously, he was on the power play, but he had. I think he led the team in shots. He had 5 in the game, so I didn't have any issues with what Sean Monahan was doing. And I know it's easy, right, to break down the goals and go into this and talk about the lines and what should be, could be, would be. I get Rick Bowness's thinking, right? He wants to see Monahan with Perfetti and Ehlers, so that's why he left that group together, and to the point where he just couldn't anymore, right?
No, for sure.
And I think he's trying to be, fair to Sean Monahan as a new player in the system. Is we're going to give you these 2 guys. You got to get accustomed to some of our guys, right, and work our way in here, but.
Yeah, no, and that absolutely you can understand the thinking, but I mean, when Rick Bowness tells Mike McIntyre, my colleague, at the end of the game that he couldn't get to it because of the power plays, well, you could have got to it at the start of the second period, right? I mean, there were no power plays there. Now, I understand this is coaching 101, and Rick gave the old, it starts with me special, and that's all well and good for coaches to say, but we also heard the truth serum from Nikolai Ehlers on his CGOB interview where he said their team wasn't ready to go. That has nothing to do with coaching. I'm sorry. I understand that coaches fall on the sword, but when you're not ready to go, that is a player problem. That's not a system problem. That's not a coaching problem. That's not a motivational problem. This is very simple, KO. The Flyers went into the break on a 5-game losing streak. They've beat 2 of the best teams in the NHL coming out of it in Florida and Winnipeg because they are playing with the urgency required by a team that is in a dogfight to remain in a playoff spot. Whereas, not that the Jets are home and cooled or anything like that, and I don't think that their mentality is shifted, but there's no doubt that it's been a while since we've seen their A game. And the problem with that is, they're obviously, we know they're not scoring, and we'll get into that in a little bit also. But when it hasn't been like an overnight issue, it's been like incremental. I said it to Sean by text earlier. It's sort of incremental erosion, and then all of a sudden you have a couple of cracks in the foundation, and now the boat is kind of taking on a little bit of water, and you got enough guys that can shovel it over for long enough. But if you don't address those issues and those cracks, all of a sudden the flood is coming, and now you're worried about the roof or the floor falling out from under you. I think that the Jets foundation is fine, and Rick Bowness went to this.
But I think that's also why he did, Ken,
sure.
Because I think he realizes and, has a vibe for what's going on out there in our world, right, where the sky's falling and it's chicken little and all, this is last year and all those things. And I still, like Sean, am dubious as to whether or not that isn't, in fact the case. I can, connect some dots as to why they're at where they're at right now. But I agree, they do need to turn it around. And I thought he was in full defense mode today, and you hear it from coaches, right? And you've seen it 100 times over a billion years in the sport that's what coaches are going to do. They're going to shelter their guys, and I'm fine with that. But almost all of that post game, Rick's pretty honest most of the time.
Yeah, there was,
and I enjoyed like today, and to me that's a red flag, because the fact that he thinks he has to be on defense mode, that he can't. You talk to Mike after the game and really kind of spew some truth and really be in defense mode. I think that to me is an indicator that, it's not panic, but there's worry, right? Because, where is it and why couldn't we find it? And there was lots of, confidence is a problem, right? You've been around the sport long enough. That is a real thing, and that does happen, and teams go through it, individuals go through it. But to me, that was a lot of tire pumping of, the shots were 15-2 in the second, and we dominated the second and the third. When the Winnipeg Jets dominate games, the Winnipeg Jets score goals, Ken. That's what I've seen. I saw it for all of November and December, and I know that they're capable of doing that. So the domination is not just, it doesn't necessarily it didn't end in finishing today. And when they're dominant, they're finishing because players like Kyle Connor don't shoot it into the corner with a backhand spinorama to Nikolai Ehlers on a breakaway, right? Adam Lowry gets it to the net. He might not be the most gifted offensive player, but you're going to get a shot off at least on a clear-cut breakaway when you're in alone. And those things, weren't happening. And that, to me, relates back to the overall picture, right? So I think there's some nervous energy for sure, but I don't think in any way, shape, or form it's time to panic. I really don't.
Yeah, no, and I think too, and I know you were watching the same as me. I mean, Rick, there were a couple of biting of the tongue moments there in the post game. There's no doubt he was a little bit. He was very open with his first answer when Mike asked him about the first goal coming off the rush. Rick was very forthcoming. That was a gift. We were there. We just let him go. Yeah. The follow-up question about the person who let him go. Was that Mike was asking if he was sending him a message, and Rick was like, it's just trying to get something going. That's all. Just trying to get something going. Well, again, no one's asking him to bury the player. The player knows already. He doesn't need to be buried publicly. But you're also, when you put a first line player on the fourth line for part of the game, you don't have to tell us it's a message sending because we know it is. So there's really no.
And he got the message, and he still went out there on the power play. This wasn't the Toronto Maple Leafs,
exactly.
A few weeks back where you had 34 and 16 sitting on the bench watching for over 2 minutes, right? And David Kampf on your power play.
No,
that
exactly.
wasn't happening. So this is a teachable moment. This is not you're banished forever and fire you into the sun. But I realize that, in the world that we live in, those are your only two options.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, I would have preferred to see Nikolai Ehlers jump up on that first line right away. But I think the other part of that, KO, was the message sending was there also. You put a worker bee up on that line because you're trying to get Kyle Connor going a little bit too, right? I think that's maybe also part of it. Now, again, you can debate whether it's the right move or not. And again, in real time, I'm saying put Ehlers on that line and give it a shot like he did in the third. But I also understand the premise of, the fourth line was probably the Jets' best line the other night. Scheifele was very good, but the line itself didn't really get a whole lot going as a trio. Whereas today, the fourth line guys, Alex Iafallo is the guy who gets the bump up. Now, you can also argue that Alex Iafallo now has gone 13 games without a goal, so why are you putting him up on the top line when you're trying to look for offense?
Who are you going to pick, Ken?
No, I know. It was a night where they were struggling. 12, yes, exactly.
Perfetti's at 15. You can go up and down the lineup. When a team's struggling to score, this is where you're going to be, right? So
yeah, and that's part of the problem that Rick Bowness is having right now, where you don't have really anybody going offensive.
Right? As good as he's been. He hit a post tonight, obviously. But.
Now, I would say one of the things now, you can't give them a whole lot of credit because they gave up bad shorty. It's basically Keystone Cops on that goal, right? You have two guys crash into one another. You win Sean Monahan wins the draw cleanly, and somehow it ends up in a shorthanded goal.
They still had the play.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's a 2-on-2. Yeah, it's a 2-on-2.
Look who's coming down, and I'm pretty sure I tried to look at a couple of replays. I think it hits Morrissey, but it looks bad on LB without a doubt.
It's definitely between his legs. I don't know if it is stick or not. It definitely he used him on a screen for sure, and he definitely fooled him. But again, that's one that. Brossoit
never happened, let alone the shot attempt, right?
You can't win a draw cleanly and give up a goal 10 seconds later. That's now. All having said all that, it's a simple 2-on-2 rush and all of the things, but it's just sort of emblematic of where the Jets are now. Instead of getting a power play goal and getting themselves into the game, now you're looking up, it's 4-0, and you're kind of wondering, well, what's going on? And even with all of those things, that's when the Jets are looking at, that's the only shot on goal they had for over basically half a period, but the Jets were not able to get anything going. So yeah, if you're the Jets, you feel good about 15 shots, but you don't feel good about not being able to generate enough and score enough. And again, on that Samuel Ersson. We're not talking about Patrick Waugh here. The guy's having a great year on a team that's overachieving, but the Jets went a long time without being able to score on Samuel Ersson, and good on Samuel Ersson. But you got to the Jets have been talking about greasy goals. Well, Philadelphia got one for sure. Konechny bounces it off Neil Pionk, and the other one
went off Nate Schmidt's honker.
It bounced 7 times, and then there's a rebound for someone to have. So they're in a weird spot.
Before I lose my talk, I do all the time. because we're going to talk about the shorthanded goal that goes against them. Everybody knows how terrible the power play's been, and it's mired in a massive slump, and it's not great. What did you think of the power play tonight? Because Philadelphia has a good penalty kill, as we know, I think second in the league coming in here tonight. And honestly, it didn't make me barf and lose all momentum and thought that they can't score a goal tonight. No, I thought and both units, right? Ehlers had that opportunity.
Crossbar,
the time that the second unit or the other alternative unit went out there, to start the power play. I thought they moved it around, thought they created a little bit. I thought it was better than it's been in the last 6, 7, 8 games where it's been horrendous and you really want to decline the penalty. And what's unfortunate about it is that they give up the shorty tonight.
Yeah, that's a thing. And that, again, I agree with you. I think that, I never got to that point, but what I was starting with was, even though they lost the special teams battle, I thought the Jets power play was much better in terms of movement and shot generation and, kind of getting to the blue paint like they hadn't been in a while. I know you referenced it earlier. I thought that cross ice, redirect for Sean Monahan, it doesn't look like much except from the one angle where it's a perfect seam and Monahan gets all of it, and it's the angle that makes it look, he doesn't miss by much is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, and it looked like a nothing burger kind of from wide out, but it was
a really good play, really smart identification, right? And that's an area that hasn't been utilized really that much by the top unit this year. And some good chances for sure. And I agree, the second unit had a few good looks. There's motion there too, and you can tell. Right? That's the thing about Monahan. So Monahan is a guy that knows what he's doing on the power play. Like, so much. Again, sometimes the numbers don't mean much, but in his career against Philadelphia, Sean Monahan has 12 goals against the Flyers, I think. 12 goals, 17 points in 18 games. 7 of the goals are on the power play against Philly. So he knows what to do against that. Again, it's different teams over the years, everything else, but he knows it's not an accident when you put up 7 power play goals against a single team in your career. It's a good idea that you know where you're going and you're going to the right spot. So I thought the Jets were a little bit less static. Yes, they're still a little bit I'd like to see Mark Scheifele is a guy who's got a great shot. So I'd like to see them use him as a one-timer option a little bit more often, so that you're not just only going, if it goes to Morrissey, it's automatically a 1T for Kyle Connor. I think if they could get going with a Scheifele along the hash mark, once he goes to Morrissey, he needs to get himself in a shooting position. So you can maybe look off Morrissey, go back to Scheifele. If you can open that up, that will also help in the high slot bumper position, because then you'll have a little bit more, you have to have
that threat on
the opponent has to respect you.
Wing, right?
Right now, you can basically put the defenseman with the big shin pads over there and try to block the Kyle Connor one-timer every time. But I agree with you. I thought that the power play was better.
Marginally better.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we're not here saying they had 28 shots or anything, but they had a bunch of high dangers in a game where they had almost nothing going. It was one of the areas where, you could look at it and say you saw some increment, like I talked about earlier.
It did kill all momentum.
Yeah, the incremental erosion. This was the opposite. This was incremental growth and something for them to build on. It helped a little bit in terms of generating some momentum when they were, still trying to get themselves back in the game. And KO, on the flip side, the penalty kill, which, I know people will say it sprung a leak. I mean, there were 2 bad bounces in the 2 goals against Pittsburgh, but they were still goals against. And that came on the heels of Toronto, I think, having 2 power play goals against them in the last game before the break. So, again, if you're giving up multiple goals in multiple games, that's a problem. So something as small as that becomes something that, as a special teams coach, in this case, Scott O'Neill running the penalty kill, you feel good about things in a game that you didn't have much going, the penalty kill. Now, yes, you had a ridiculous paddle save by Laurent Brossoit on Cates, but at the same time, the penalty kill was clean, and it cleaned off a 5-on-3. So that's
without Brendan Dillon in the lineup as well, right? Which is a factor when you look at who you're rolling out there.
No doubt, no doubt. And, with that, because I touched on it and I don't want to go too far overboard here, I'm going to call the Jets penalty kill is we've got you covered. That's the cumulative plays of the game, just because in a game that there weren't really a lot of choices, the we've got you covered will go to the Jets penalty kill, which was, I think, 4 for 4, including a 5-on-3. So we're giving them the nod. Do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Thank you to the OGs from the Johnston Group. And KO, I sort of missed ours right out of the gate. Neither one of us rocking a suit, but we look like we've been shopping at the Vittorio Rossi casual collection. And if you want to get set up like Kenny and Renny normally, go see Frankie and the boys at Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. Where do we want to go? Let's go quickly to what'd you see from Logan Stanley here? And again, we'll expand on this point here, but Logan Stanley just under 15 minutes. He will go down as a -2, but it wasn't one of those nights where Logan Stanley was running around and you wouldn't point to say, "Oh, Logan Stanley, it's your fault that you were on for those 2 even strength goals against."
No, but watch the replays, Kenny. I mean, the face-off play that results in the goal, he goes nowhere. He goes to no man's land. He takes nobody. He's in the slot. Yes, he takes a wild stab at the puck, with this 13-foot-long hockey stick, which I get there's a chance that he's going to get it. But he was in the wrong position. He took nobody. The coverage just poof. He's literally skating by himself, looks up and is like, "Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. I don't have anybody covered. They have the puck at the point." And then he hacks at the puck. No good. The next goal, it's not his fault. I know he's on the ice, but he's tailing off, covering a player that's in the corner. The guy's not scoring from the corner. He doesn't have the puck in the corner, and Morgan Frost has it in front. And yes, I understand there's a bounce. But your other players are condensed down in front of the net, and there's just no reason for him to be there, right? So they're, are they the most horrendous plays, and can you tie it to him? No. But they're mistakes, and they're mistakes, quite honestly, that at this level, at this time, with this team, can't happen. I know he hasn't played since early December
12th,
it's 21 games. That's hard to do. We watch guys do it and sit up in the press box, and it takes a special kind of player who can do that. But when you're a player who, is riding that bubble, you've got to be ready when you get your opportunity. And, the debate is going to rage, from me, from you to everyone else, that this is your opportunity to see Ville Heinola come up here, and take his rightful place where he was to start the season, or was supposed to be, and was earmarked for, and let him see it. Let's see if he can move the puck and bring his skill set to the game, because Logan brought exactly what I expect Logan to bring, and exactly what he, quite frankly, has for most of his career, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. So he played just under 15 minutes. I mean, I thought his work on the penalty kill early was fine. Good battle with Sean Couturier. But, I mean, you're right. I mean, to me, I think this is, we need to take a moment to appreciate how good Kyle Capobianco was last year when he would go months without playing. I mean, it's the hardest thing in sports to do. And, to be honest, I think that you are not putting him in a position to succeed if you're the Winnipeg Jets. And I have to imagine that this had something to do with the AHL All-Star break. I don't know if Ville Heinola went away for the break or not, but the Manitoba Moose just got back to Grand Rapids today for a practice. So I don't know if that was the major factor.
If you ask Ville if he'd rather have a holiday, he'd rather be in the NHL.
No,
I'll give you his answer if you'd like me to.
No, for sure. But again, you wouldn't have known that at the time, right? I mean, Tuesday, he probably was on his way back already. But I mean,
there's always reasons you don't know, right?
One guy's played 10 games in the last month. The other guy hasn't played since December 12th. I mean, if it were as simple as inserting that player, I think the Jets would have done it. But at the same time, once Axel Jonsson-Fjällby clears waivers, I think the Jets are doing themselves a disservice, and Dominic Toninato deserves lots of praise for his ability to work his way back up the depth chart, but you can't, be worried about potentially losing a 15th forward over, giving someone who you said made the team and would have been in the opening night lineup, the door was open for Ville Heinola. Now I understand, there's other issues at play, salary cap, roster space, whatever. But if not now, then when? Like, to me, Ville Heinola needs to be in the lineup on Saturday night. The Jets struggled with exits today, and they also struggled with breakouts against the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's one of Ville Heinola's biggest strengths. Now, I understand there are challenges on the defending side. He looked better in training camp and all of that, but I mean, the reality is, you don't want to be throwing Ville Heinola into the fire at game 60, so you got to try it before game 50 if you're asking.
And it's not like things are going so great right now that you can't dare take the risk to upset the apple cart. Right?
No, for sure. And then too, we've been talking about the power play for a long time. I mean, one of Ville Heinola's strengths is his puck distribution. So there's another place where he might be able to help you. Now, I understand it's not a league where you have to. The Jets are not in a position where it's not on the job training, but at the same time, you've expressed confidence in the player. That player needs to get into the lineup, in my humble opinion, and I'll be surprised if they don't.
I haven't watched the Moose.
I haven't watched enough.
I see what's going on. He's got 4 points in 10 games. You can kind of, draw your conclusions. A player coming off a long-term injury, that it is difficult. There is a transition.
Oh, no doubt.
Get up to speed, all the things, right? And get that confidence back up so that you can, when you come up, that you're ready to come up. And maybe there's indications, right? Maybe Mark Morrison and his crew with the Moose they obviously know the player very well. They know when he is peaking, right? Like he was last year when he was playing with the Manitoba Moose at the tail end of the season. If he's not there yet, I can't be the judge of that, right? And say that he's definitely ready right now. I agree that with you, you've said it, 10 games is a pretty good stretch to get a guy back into it. But a 10-game stretch and then an all-star break.
Yeah, exactly. There could be some issues, but I would be surprised if he's not at practice. Now, again, I've been surprised before. But if your plan is to give him a test drive before the trade deadline, which is 1 month away, there seems to be an opportunity that is available and open. A window opened up unexpectedly after the 3-game suspension. And
I understand the loyalty to Logan Stanley. Gave him a shot.
Sure, of course.
Here you go, Logan. I think Scott Arniel this morning alluded to the fact that he's going to play all 3. And, that would be the direction that they would look at going in. But they gave Logan a shot, right? We're loyal to you. We asked you to be ready. You came in and did what you could to help the hockey team. That's great. And you're going to play that role. You're still probably going to play that role, right, within this team and this unit, depending how things shake out moving forward. And during the playoffs, we all know what happens on the back end, and you're going to need 10 defensemen that can play all the things and contribute, right? But now, if it wasn't this game in Philly, now you're back home. Now things aren't going so well. You're having trouble moving the puck. It's, to me, there's too many check boxes that I'm curious about Ville Heinola. And this is not an experiment. It's not. No, this is not a 19-year-old player that you're trying to squeeze into the lineup where there's going to be inconsistencies and he's not going to be able to handle it. Now you're starting to be genuinely curious if he can handle it, let alone for a game, night in, night out, right?
Yeah, right on. And quickly, but we're going to bring Mike McIntyre in from Wells Fargo Center in a second. But before we do that, a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, Lou Ferlin. If you have real estate needs you'd like to have met, whether you're buying, selling, or curious what that house on the corner is going for right now, you can contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast. And as we bring in Mike McIntyre, my colleague at the Winnipeg Free Press, today's edition of Buy or Sell. Are you buying Ville Heinola in the lineup on Saturday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Michael?
Welcome. I mean, if you're going by what Scott Arniel told me this morning, where he definitively said Logan Stanley is going to play these 3 games. Now, to be fair, Scott Arniel may have just been referring to the options that were available to him as he spoke. And there is no other option than playing Logan Stanley unless they want to play 5 defensemen, which obviously was not going to happen. It's Kevin Cheveldayoff, really, who has the power here, if he wants, to take the obviously off the table and give Coach Rick Bowness and his staff that option. I think, and I suspect you guys may concur, that for a team that is having trouble moving the puck, that is having trouble scoring goals, that is having trouble on the power play, all of that, along with the fact that we're talking about a player that made the team out of camp, or was about to make the team out of camp, through no fault of his own, he breaks his ankle. I mean, I get that pro sports, it's not always fair, but certainly, and based on what Kevin Cheveldayoff guys told us last week about Ville, which certainly sounded like the loss of Declan Chisholm, part of that was because they have Ville in the plans here. I mean, all of those factors to me, and the other one, guys, that I think really seals it to me in terms of saying he should be up here. If the Jets had lost Axel Jonsson-Fjällby on waivers the other day, and so now they're down a depth forward, I get why maybe they're a little hesitant to now put a Dominic Toninato on waivers, because you don't want to lose 2 depth forwards. Not to say that those guys are difference makers, but you need depth. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby passed through waivers. That should give this team some comfort, that Dominic Toninato probably will as well. But even if he doesn't, they did retain a piece of depth. And so to me, I mean, all of those factors alone, if I'm the Jets, I'm waiving Dominic Toninato tomorrow. I'm bringing Ville Heinola in. I'm having him practice, and I'm putting him in the lineup on Saturday night. And for the very least, for the next 2 games, then you decide at that point, what you're going to do. And you hope that he provides a spark. And this is a team, guys, as we saw tonight, they could use a spark or 2. And, Ville's got 10 games now. Obviously that's a tough injury to come back from. Would it be good for him to get some more games with the Moose? Maybe, sure. But I think the time is now. And quite frankly, I'd be a little surprised if it doesn't happen.
KO, what do you think?
I would say, based on their track record, that it's not going to happen, right? Because we've seen it time and time again where all of us are jumping up and down and saying this is the logical move and this is what we see being part of the solution for your struggles right now. It's very rarely the case that that's the move that this organization chooses to make. They're loyal to a fault. We know this. I think this is the opportunity. I think things are different, but I also think there is just kind of, that dark cloud of last year is hanging over, and they're doing everything they can to make sure that they don't show any signs of panic. And we talked about the post-game comments to you today, Mike, from Rick Bowness, and I was like, he's in full defense mode, and that's a red flag to me because usually he's pretty honest. But at the same time, I think big picture, it is important to establish that this team is not the same team as it was last year, and I don't see it as such either, right? Like, even with this game, even with the Pittsburgh game, there was lots of games that they won on that epic streak where they weren't, great, sure. But they got the bounces and they outworked the team that they were playing against. That's still in there with this team, and I think if they bring in Ville, right, it is a message to the team that, maybe we are worried that you're not the guys that we thought you were for the 2 months. And in this small window, right, because it's 3 games, it's, do they need to call him up right now? No, they do not. And that's probably what they're going to tell you, even though I think it's a great opportunity. And I would, if I was making that call.
Yeah, I mean,
pay me to do that.
To that, guys, I'd say if not now, then when? The door is wide open. This opportunity has fallen into your lap, essentially, because as Logan Stanley told me yesterday, hey, at least it's not an injury that's bringing Logan into the lineup. So it's not an injury.
The big reason, Mike, honestly, is because it means at the end of the day, if Ville comes up and is good, that they have to bounce Nate Schmidt out of the lineup. And they don't want to do that right now. And he's an important element to what they do. And he played well enough to play himself in. So the issue is not Logan Stanley or Ville Heinola. It is right now with Brendan Dillon not in the lineup. But the big picture is that the guy who comes out and the 6 defensemen that they're going to play, because Dylan Sandberg is clearly going to play, is Nate Schmidt. And then that's the argument that you get into. So big picture, that is the debate. So the difference is not between Logan Stanley and Ville Heinola as much as it is in the moment. It is between him and Nate Schmidt and the intangibles and all the things that player brings that would come out of the line.
Not to single out at all Nate Schmidt. I get that argument if this team was still number 1 in the NHL in win percentage and number 1 in the Central. Number 1, they're not. And, there's talk about, are the Jets going to maybe bring a defenseman in at the trade deadline? Like, if they're looking at this isn't a development league. It's also not a loyalty league, if you will. It should be about winning. And to me, this is the time to see what Ville looks like now as an NHL player.
But then it doesn't matter either way, Mike, because if you're bringing in a defenseman, and I believe that they should and probably will, if it is a Chris Tanev type, then Ville's pushed that much further down, and this year is not going to be his year, and you can let him recover from that injury and score 40 points in 20 games with the Manitoba Moose and be feeling good and be part of this team next year, because the rental you get at the deadline to go on a run this year, and if you need him deep into the playoffs, that he's played 40 games with the Moose and he's up and running and ready to go. So if you're bringing in a guy, that's another argument not to be patient. And the Winnipeg Jets, if they're anything, aren't patient.
Yeah, I mean, I would use the argument as simple as this. And if you have to explain it to Nate Schmidt this way, Ville beat you out for a job in training camp. And let's face it, Rick Bowness, it's not revisionist history to say that Ville was going to be in the opening night lineup. It's not just us speculating. Rick Bowness has flat out said that Ville, and if he doesn't break his ankle, maybe Nate Schmidt, we might not have even been talking about him, because he might be the guy that's been Declan Chisholm and Logan Stanley and played a handful of games. So to me,
and I'm not picking Nate Schmidt over Ville Heinola, per se, because I haven't seen what Ville can do either, and I'm confident, and I'd like to think, but he's going to be a young player, he's going to make mistakes, all the things, right? I know Nate makes mistakes, and he's not a perfect player either. So it's going to be, you're talking about your third pairing, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the Jets, they've lost their 5-game winless streak, so there's a little added urgency now. At the end of the day, though, the Jets are still in a pretty good spot. They're not tooth and nail right now in a playoff spot. Isn't this the time? And you mentioned they don't know what they have in Ville. They sure know what they have in Nate Schmidt. And I'm not saying that that ship has sailed. You may need Nate Schmidt. I mean, especially if even if they add a defenseman, if they get a couple injuries, absolutely you're going to need Nate Schmidt. But you know what?
And Ville and Logan Stanley, you might need them all, right? Like you know how playoff runs go.
But you also might need Ville Heinola, and he's a guy, unlike Schmidt and unlike Logan, who, I mean, I know he hasn't played much, but you haven't seen Ville this year in the NHL. To me, it just makes all the sense in the world. But I don't disagree with your premise, Kevin, that this is a loyal organization. I'll lay it out to you this way. Right now, where's Dominic Toninato on the depth chart? Let's be honest. He's the 15th forward right now on this team. They have the 12 guys that played tonight. They have Rasmus Kupari, who is probably getting in before Dominic Toninato. They also have David Gustafsson, who is probably ready to return. He might be overripe at this point. And I dare say that probably
every organization has a Dominic Toninato, right? They've got that bubble guy who can be their first call up. And so everybody's up against their contract limits for all those reasons. As good as Dom has been and valuable, and they love him and all the things, he's not getting plucked off the way.
No, but and even if he does, I just think, are you serious about winning if you're going to hold a promising young defenseman, a guy that was going to,
if he gets plucked, you get Axel Janssen-Fjallby comes back up, right?
But I mean, because you're afraid to risk losing your 15th forward on waivers? Like,
they're not afraid to lose their 8th defenseman because they've done it twice.
Sure. I just think at some point David Gustafsson's got to be activated anyways, and that probably means Toninato's going down in
100% either way, right?
So why not send him down tomorrow, and then you give Ville a couple games, then you see, and if all your defensemen are still healthy, if nobody's gotten hurt over these next two, sure, then maybe Ville, unfortunately, you say, you know what, great showing, kid. You're going to be back here. We can expand the rosters after the trade deadline, but we got to create a spot now for David Gustafson.
What if they know, Mike? And I asked Kenny this. What if they know down with the Moose and within the organization that he's not ready yet, that he's not all the way back, and he's not, confident and peaking at his game where he can contribute and have the confidence to come in and make the impact yet? We don't know that information, right?
Is he better though than Logan Stanley, who just played for the first time in 2 months tonight? I mean, and so he's not exactly up to game speed either. He's up to practice speed because he's had a lot of experience. He's up to press box popcorn speed because he's eaten a lot of press box popcorn over the last couple of months.
Been there, sister.
And I'm not saying Logan Stanley was terrible tonight. Like a lot of the Jets, he didn't have a great game. Nobody really had a great game. I know we spent a lot of time on this. I think it's an issue that a lot of fans care passionately about. To me, the time is now for at least 2 games. Then you sort out, after these 2 games, you sort out what it means in the big picture. I just think this is the time to do it.
Just a quick one here, Mike. I see Sean Monahan looking more comfortable as the 2 games have rolled along. You've been in the building both nights, seen how he interacts on the bench with his line mates and everything else. What have you seen from the Jets' newest acquisition in the first 2 games?
Yeah, he came within a couple inches tonight of his first goal. Sam Ersson made a great pad save, just got the sort of toe out there. He moves really well. I haven't looked. You may know offhand here what his numbers in the dot. I know he had a pretty good night the other night, was the best on the team. I don't know if he was as successful tonight in the face-off circle.
50% today, which was the best on the. Or sorry,
yeah.
Nino is 2-0, so
very small sample size with Nino. So of the 4 centers, the Nino's not a center. He's just taking draws on the face-off. So that's 2 straight games now. He's been their best regular centerman. And the other thing, guys, I know the power play, and until they start to produce, it's a bit of white noise to talk about. But I thought the power play looked pretty good. And I've seen a lot of good things out of Sean Monahan. He seems like a very smart, heady player, good on the forecheck. Obviously, he's only had a couple skates, and now it looks like he maybe has a new line mate because of the way the game ended. So it's not like he's even had a whole lot of runway with the guys that he started with. Now he may have to get used to another winger, because it looks like Nick Ehlers and Gabe Vilardi certainly late in the third period were switched. And guys, I don't know about you, I'll be shocked if Rick Bowness doesn't at least start next game with how tonight's ended. I think a big part of that is because he had to have liked, compared to what he saw earlier in the game, he had to have liked the jump he saw. And I thought especially the Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers trio, like those guys were buzzing. They had that really good sort of breakaway that turned into a 2-on-1 that turned into not even a shot early on. Classic Jets there. But they were generating, so I think he probably sticks with the lines as they finished up tonight.
Yeah, right on. Before we're gonna go around the horn here, Mike, you were in the building. I'll start with you. On Keg save, the game was pretty obvious late in the game, but what do you got for us there?
Well, one save, and it doesn't mean anything because the grand scheme of it, the Jets lost the game. But that was a remarkable stop on the 5-on-3 there.
Yes, sir.
He preserved the clean sheet on the PK. And, hey, guys, there hasn't been a whole lot for the Jets to be thrilled about with their game lately. But the penalty kill, as bad as that first period was tonight, the penalty kill had 2 nice kills. Surprisingly, it was 5-on-5 where suddenly they struggled. But, Laurent Brossoit's diving save to me.
Paddle down, yeah.
In a losing effort, paddle down was certainly my pick.
Right on. KO, any other thoughts?
It was pretty. I think LB is pretty. He's a beautiful man, all the things. Sorry, Sam Ersson's save on Nino Niederreiter changes the hockey game. He breaks right in. He gets a good shot off. At that point where this team is at confidence-wise, the point in the hockey game, that I don't know if it swung momentum, but it certainly kept momentum from swinging in the Winnipeg Jets' direction. That, to me, is the biggest one, because of when it happened in the game. And I mean, just think of if if Nino gets one and he breaks out of his slump and it's early and the guys, how much the guys love Nino if you've been around them, for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of emotion there. The bench is going to be charged. There's lots of good feelings. You're off and running, and it's a 1-1 hockey game in a way.
Just on that point, Kevin, Nino was so candid yesterday at practice. Like, he actually talked about, and this is a guy who obviously is an established 20-plus goal scorer. Like, scoring goals is never really an issue for him, but he talked about kind of the mental toll that I guess it was a 14. I guess it's now 15, or am I off by a game? I think it was 14 coming in.
It's 15 now, yeah.
15 now. And, just the toll that takes and the second guessing and all that. There's a guy, there's a lot of Jets who could use a goal. Nino would be at the top of the list. And that was a great save for sure. And you wonder maybe how the game, if it does play out a little differently, if he can find the back of the net and what it might have done for him and his teammates. But so be it.
Right on. And that is our keg save of the game. We've shared ours. Now you folks in the chat room and the commenters, leave your keg save of the game, and that can get you a $50 gift card from our good friends at the Keg, which can be used at all 3 locations in Winnipeg. As Sean likes to say, each location better than the last. Our winner from the last show is Maria Cruz. You are the winner of that $50 gift card, and you can contact myself or Sean Reynolds in order to claim that gift card. Sean is in the air as we speak on the way home from his vacation.
If it's anything like my trip down south, he's still sitting on the tarmac waiting for somebody to pump out the crapper on the plane, because I was there for 4.5 hours waiting desperately.
Let's hope Sean's a little more on his game, though, coming off a vacation than the Jets have been on their game.
As long as they pull the goalie, he'll be happy, Mike. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Maybe you guys talked about that already. Did you find it at all curious that Rick Bowness didn't pull the goalie down 3 with 3+ minutes left? Like, teams now, maybe they didn't used to. Teams generally do pull the goalie now when they're down 3. And guys, we saw it last year. Carolina scored 3 times with the goalie out to force overtime in Winnipeg last year. And then a few nights later, Dallas scored twice with the goalie out against the Jets. That was a bizarre week for the Jets that gave up 5 goals at 6-on-5. It felt a bit like waving the white flag. And people who were mad, there were people mad. Remember when the Jets pulled the goalie against Boston and it cost them the record? And people were like,
streak is well over now, as we know.
It is. But I was a little surprised that they didn't, and maybe it's because Rick has seen his team play with an extra man, and he knew that just scoring 1 goal was going to be an enormous task, let alone 3. But I was a little surprised because the Jets were actually really pushing the play late in the game. They get that goal. I just thought, even just for some confidence, maybe he would have. And honestly, I'm kicking myself. Asked him obviously a few questions post game, and I should have asked him if he considered that, or if not, why. But I just found that a little curious.
Yeah, I think Sean did touch on it in the opening, Mike, and he was upset about it the other night, and again, wasn't thrilled about it. To me, I guess maybe it's more a matter of trying to find some chemistry with the new lines. But yeah, at some point you're going to need a 6-on-5 goal, so it would make sense whether it's to win the game or get back in the game or whatever. It makes a lot of sense. It hasn't
get Sean Monahan out there with some different players. There's all the things, right? Like there's lots of.
At the end of the day, whether you lose 4-1 or 5-1, like, who cares at that point? Doesn't go on LB's on his stats anyways. So I don't know. I would have done it. Minor point, I guess, but a little bit surprised. Maybe Rick just was fed up with his team at that point.
Okay, KO, we're going to the Lamplighter. What do you got for goal of the game tonight, my man?
Well, I'd like to pick Kyle Connors because it's the only one the Jets have scored in a month. That's what it feels like. And it was a sweet little tuck job. The real the real play on that is Morrissey's keep at the line, obviously, is the skill play on that to keep that play alive. But you know what?
Almost expected it to be ruled offside given the way things...
Yeah,
because of course they scored the other night too in Pittsburgh, and it came back.
But I'm going to go as embarrassing as it is with the shorty, because I think it is the one that killed them. It's one that can't go in, and whether it went through Morrissey's legs or it did, change direction off of him. Either way, to me, that one was a backbreaker. The other two were kind of bad bounces, and as you said, a gift. So I'm not giving Philly, any kudos for that. So,
Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great shot by Paling. I'm sure that, people will say, and probably Laurent Brossoit would say, that he should stop that puck. Bit of a malfunction at the junction, of course, that leads to that play. It's just, that sums up how Winnipeg's power play is going lately, that they kind of run into each other. I believe Josh Morrissey and Kyle Connor, and of course, play now comes the other way. It was a great shot. That first goal, though, and it wasn't like the Flyers made a nice play. They're a great rush team. And they score a goal right off the rush, right? To me, that goal, though, and, we saw it, and certainly to hear Rick Bowness talk about it, he was not impressed with Gabe Vilardi's effort on the back check there. And, he made that pretty clear. And in fact, Rick Bowness, he went so far as to say, not only did we just, that's on us, we let our guy go, he then came back to that goal a few minutes later and said that goal set them on their heels. Now, you wouldn't think a really good hockey team would be on its heels because they give up one goal, but it's interesting that Rick Bowness kind of put that weight on that goal, and he felt, in his eyes, that was the turning point, kind of right off the hop.
Yeah, and I think that it was very anti-Jets. That was like Rick Bowness talked later on to you, Mike, about we're going to keep playing Jets hockey. That was the antithesis of Jets hockey,
and
except that the effort was there.
The effort wasn't the problem.
No, it was the
commitment
to
the effort. He gave up on the effort in the last, 6 feet in front of LB's crease. And otherwise, like he hustled to get back. He was in the right position. He was doing Jets things till he wasn't.
Yeah, very strong.
They scored the goal.
And that's why I'm going with Forster as my tone setter in terms of the lamplighter. We've given our lamplighter the Nectar of the Gods. You'd like to give your lamplighter, you can enter for a frosty and delicious 8-pack of lamplighter beer from our good friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for our 8-pack to be delivered, visit our friends at the Trans-Canada Brewing Company in the tap room at 1290 Kenniston Avenue. And you can join us, Sean Reynolds and myself. KO might actually be there as well. Mike is going to be...
I can't get in. I can't get a ticket. I'm just a commoner now. I don't get those free BP lunches like I used to with Mike McIntyre and just get to hang out and talk hockey all the time. I got real jobs. I got things to do, Kenny. It's
Louis Riel Day. You will be there.
Please let me in.
If you are looking for your ticket, here's the link right there at Eventbrite for the Kenny and Renny show on February 19th. Jets
used to be a contender.
Jets versus Calgary Flames.
No, I was never a contender.
Should be a great afternoon. The first two shows have been fantastic. We've got 2 more live shows before the regular season is over. The next one being February 19th. We'd love to see you there. What else do we got here? Mike, anything else stand out from this road trip? I mean, obviously, Jets are now 0-5 here. You want to call it 0-4-1, go ahead, but 5 losses. What do you think of Adam Lowry's answer? For those who didn't hear it on the post-game show, what did you take from the captain addressing the issue here post-game?
Well, it was interesting to hear both him and Dylan DeMello spoke of readiness. And, I watched the Jets had a pretty good practice yesterday. They said all the right things about coming out ready. And, Paul Maurice used to always say the other guys drive nice cars too, or I don't know how he put it. I think sometimes just say the other guys get paid too. And look, the Flyers, we saw them in Winnipeg. The Flyers, I know they had a 5-game hiccup themselves before the break. They just went into Florida and beat Paul Maurice, his team, the other day. That's never easy. The Panthers have a good club. And the Flyers, they're a really good hockey team. Like they play with structure. Fascinating guys. As I'm riding the elevator back up here, a bunch of Philadelphia reporters were in, and they were all having a chuckle over the fact. One of them said 64 seconds out loud, and I said, "What was 64 seconds?" And they said, "The coach, John Tortorella." I said, "Even in a win, he was 60." And apparently, I haven't seen it yet. Apparently, they asked him, "What did you think of your team's play after you got the 4-0 lead?" And his answer, he didn't speak a word. He held up a 0 sign with his hand.
That's what he thought about it.
He just said he just went 0 and did not say a word about it. So, the Jets.
That's what I'm trying to say, Brooksy.
Yeah. So, I think Lowry and everybody tried to, they were very critical, obviously, of the way they started, and that's good. They have awareness that that's not the kind of hockey they play. And, they obviously liked their effort as the game went on. You do wonder, though, guys, sometimes, like, did players, teams, fans, whatever, media, put too much stock in, when score effects are basically in place? Now, Rick Bowness did say that, hey, John Tortorella teams, they don't take the foot off the gas. I think they kind of did. But
if they were a 0, the Jets got to score, Mike, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Right? When they're dominant, they're scoring.
Well, they're
they finish. They have finishers.
I asked Adam Lowry flat out. I said, "Are you guys a fragile group right now?" And he's conceded that there's some fragility there. He's like, probably don't want to admit it. Put on a brave face and all that. But hey, the game being what it is, a mental part of it, confidence is a big thing, and the Jets don't have much of that right now. Maybe that third period and that goal by Kyle Connor gets them going, but to me, Saturday is such a big game now, guys. It's not a must win, obviously. That term gets overused, but I think the Jets need to, probably for themselves more than anything, they need to come out and kind of have something good happen, because the 5 games is bad enough, but you've also got a 9-day break in there. It's been a long time since this team had anything to really feel good.
Where are those jackets? Those things are in mothballs. There's no chance anybody's worn those things.
You're right. It's gonna have to.
It used to be a nightly video, right? Oh, who's getting the coat? Let's check it out. There's the flight suit.
So yeah, I thought. Look,
do they even still do that? I don't know.
Yeah, they do. They just haven't had a reason to do it lately. Yeah, nobody's hitting the panic button, but there's concern for sure. And this Jets team, they should come out and be hyper focused on Saturday against a team that just beat them pretty good the other night. So,
and should be tired. They play in mini, right?
They do.
Friday night, yep.
Yeah.
And just a quick one before we wrap up. Dom Zappia, we are appreciative of you being here. We did talk about the pinch earlier on, and I have no issue with the pinch. It's an issue if there's no forward. Covered. Gabriel Velarde was there. It was a 2-on-2. Neil Pionk took a little bit of an... Mike, you were in the building. It was just a bit of an awkward route that he took on the play. But there was no danger there. It was the other defenseman is back.
He forced
second forward is there.
Playing shot. It's a tap-in goal that the guy should not have a stick on the ice, right?
No, and the other thing I wondered, and in real time, guys, to me, Laurent Brossoit could have stopped that puck from even getting where it went. Maybe he just assumed that the
player was checked.
Yeah, right? But that's the breakdown, right? So
yeah, there was a lot of weirdness on that one.
And where's the connectivity, right? That's what we talked about them when they were playing well. They were all connected.
But to Dom's point, no offense, Dom, I don't think there's anything wrong with the pinch. In fact,
the Jets are an aggressive team. That's what they do.
Wants his defenseman, and as long as the guy's covering, that's not an issue. And there was coverage there for sure.
Yeah, right on. KO, anything else before we wrap? How about you, Mike? Anything else catch your attention?
The Jets will be happy to get out of Pennsylvania, that's for sure.
No kidding.
Pittsburgh's always been a house of horrors for them. What was the number? Something like 19.
2 out of 22.
2 out of
2 out of 23?
Yeah, 2 wins in 22 or 23. So, and they haven't necessarily fared much better down the road here or across the state in Philly. And of course, this year, hey, if the Jets meet the Flyers in the Stanley Cup final, the Flyers will be the heavy favorite based on how these two teams went.
Samuel Urson for the Conn Smythe, if that's the matchup.
Yeah, no kidding. I like the way the Flyers play for sure. But yeah, so that's, my takeaway is that the Jets are probably, they can't get on that charter quick enough tonight to get the heck out of this state and get home, because things have not gone so well in the fine state of Pennsylvania in recent times.
You can wait for your commercial flight home, Mike. Don't worry.
Yes. There you go. And just
on
quickly,
the other hand, I'm not in a hurry to get out of here. I'm not leaving until tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to go run the Rocky Steps tomorrow, which I've never done actually. So I'm going to go do that before I head to the airport. Hopefully I don't pull anything. And
don't leave your phone behind, Michael.
don't leave my phone behind. Good point by you.
Just
Kenny.
here to
You
be
know me
helpful. Yeah, and just a quick one. As Doug Henderson pointed out, I did not announce the winner of the Lamplighter from last game. This is a toughie, KO. It's Patrick, and then we have a G followed by a W, O-D-Z. Would we go with, is it a silent G? Wodes? What do you think? G-W-O-D-Z.
Yeah, it's Gavanka, I think
Could
is
be-
how it's
It could
pronounced.
be a silent W. It could be goods.
Okay, Patrick, goods or wodes or
Patrick,
We're in the goods.
Yes,
Patrick
goods, yeah.
Patrick G winning the 8-pack of the Lamplighter as long as you claim it. And I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly, but you can send me a DM at Weeb's World, and we will get you your frosty and delicious 8-pack. And don't forget to share your Lamplighter to be eligible to win on Saturday night's game, where Sean will be back hosting Hockey Night in Canada against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Michael, safe travels. Thank you for joining us all the way from Philadelphia. Great to have you back with us. KO, thank you for running the ship here with Sean hopping on a plane after his vacation. And to everybody else, as we say all the time, special thank you to our sponsors who ensure that these shows are being made. Our sponsors are Lou Ferlin, Pristine Roofing, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Johnston Group, the OGs, the Keg, and Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again on Saturday night. Have a good night, everyone.